Matteen Rad back with another Rock Lobster Coach's Corner in between two Wednesday night contests against the Columbus River Dragons. The first of those two games went to the good guys as the Rock Lobsters defeated Columbus 6-3. I'm joined, as always, with my guest, Steve Martinson. Coach Marty, that night started out, I'm sure, with some frustration on your part. A 2-hour delay takes the puck drop to around 9 o'clock, and yet it takes just a minute for your boys to find the back of the net. When you're already in the building, what do those delays look like from your perspective in the locker room? And what are you and the boys having to do to stay fresh and focused?
Well, I mean, the good thing is we knew early it was going to be delayed because their bus broke down at like 2 o'clock. So the guys were told to come to the rink an hour later, which, made an advantage for us. What's bad about it is your home crowd. You get people that aren't coming to the game now because they don't know when it's going to start. They don't know when it's going to be over. So that's the real hurtful part. But it's to our advantage when something like that happens from our players because they're in their locker room. They're comfortable and doing all kinds of different little things. And the other guys are, in a van and they're in the van down by the river. No, that's a bad joke. But no, they got to run around and get here. And then, we gave them a half an hour to get ready and get on the ice because we got to get the game going. I think they took a little bit longer. It was supposed to be a half hour, but I think they took like 40 minutes.
That first goal is just a great passage of play between your first line, Daniil Glukaryov, Orca Weisblatt, and Garrett Milan. It really feels like those are three different characters with different styles, but it really feels like they're meshing together really well right now as well. What do you think, what elements of those three play gives that line good chemistry?
Well, to start, they can all skate. And they're all strong guys and they're all physical. They all finish their checks. So not only do they provide a lot of offense, they play against the other team's first line just about game in and game out. So, they're also playing against the other team's best players. But they're just real complete players. None of them really have any, they're not missing anything. Sometimes you have a line where, one guy's maybe not good in front of the net or doesn't like to be in front of the net or is not good in the corner. Or maybe lacking speed or size or whatever, but that line kind of has it also. I'm not surprised that it's doing well. It should do well. They have everything you need.
We saw on the broadcast last Wednesday, it seemed apparent that Rosie was moving a bit gingerly. He's obviously the hot hand at the minute as he's the league's goalie of the month for January, but is he nursing any kind of knock right now?
Well, he did. He had a little bit of he was a little bit stiff on his ankle during the game. He got bumped into but it's nothing that's keeping him out from playing now. He should be 100% today. We haven't been on the ice yet today. It's we had a weekend off. Still some of the guys that went out of town are traveling back. So he should be 100% today.
Garrett Milan, the reigning FPHL player of the month, and he is within striking distance of the top scoring spot in this league behind Binghamton's Tyson Kirkby. I'm sure that Millsy's potential to do something like this, what he's doing right now, is the biggest reason why you signed him. But has there been anything, his level, his consistency, his leadership, that has surprised you so far this season?
Not really. Once I saw him play, you know what I mean? It's not like I've seen him play a lot, but, once I saw him and, the type of game that he can play, and I love puck carrying teams. I mean, that's what I think. It's the most fun to play. It's the most enjoyable to watch. And he's a puck carrier. He's a good skater, really good skater. And he can turn. The only way you can possess the puck in the offensive zone is you've got to be able to maneuver with speed. And you've got to be able to cut back and it's called a good outside edge push to escape players. And guys that can't do that, guys that have just straight out speed but don't have that in tight cornering stopping, and you see in the NHL, that's really big now. But that's the only way you could have puck possession in the offensive zone. And on our team, Garrett, he's at the top of the food chain and being able to do that.
It looks like we set up Kaysen DeLant perfectly with our talks about him last week. 2 power play goals for that young man, and now he's tied for 3rd in power play goals in this league. You've told me before that the organization is trying to do what they're trying to do here is win and also help players find the next level. When you look into the crystal ball, what kind of future do you see for Case?
Well, I mean, I think the sky's the limit for him, and right now he's still developing his game because you've seen it like we talked about. I think he's the most improved player on the team. but I also think that he's one of the most serious guys. And when it comes to, his hockey and getting better, and, sometimes players come from different levels and different programs, and you don't really know what they've either been taught or been asked to be, to learn, or what the expectations are. So, here it's the first time I really had a team that nobody ever played for me. So, you usually have a few guys that can help lead the way. So, yeah, I mean, Collins just a lot of fun. He's got a smile on his face all the time. Although he's unhappy if he's not doing well, if the team's not doing well, but fortunately that doesn't happen very often. So, yeah, I mean, I think he's just going to keep filling it at a higher pace as the season goes on.
Your team executed excellently Wednesday, but there was also an element where Columbus looked really flat at certain points of the game. You've played this team a ton already. In your opinion, how much did their travels to Binghamton and that broken down bus ride to Athens contribute to their lack of cohesion?
Well, I mean, it's gonna play in. I mean, you talk about trying to not have it play in, but what I didn't like about the game is we gave them, we were bad. We were weak defensively on all three of their goals. I mean, just weak. The last one was really painful to watch. Guys swinging to the zone, a couple of guys, dealing with more out at the blue line. More knocks down Reller, and Portillo stops and starts getting into a pushing thing, and the play's going on. And then one of our defensemen goes down. And if you go down and you don't get the puck, then you're like a turtle on your back, and that's exactly what he was. And we did it against the other team's first line. So I really didn't like that last play. We had a defenseman run out of position on the second goal, and the first one their big guy just came right to the front of the net. We just let him, hammer the puck away. Nobody paid attention to him. So we were weak defensively on those goals. But going back to their team, yeah, I don't spend a lot of time. I think they have a hard time with our speed. I think some of the defensemen struggle against our speed, and that's what we want to do, is continue to work on playing at a really fast pace.
I'm not sure if you knew this or not. You might have seen over on their bench that something wasn't normal. Columbus was also without their head coach, Jerome Bouchard. I believe he was sick with the flu, which is going around right now. How hard can it be for a team that would set without the go-to?
I never noticed that. I never noticed that he wasn't on the bench. I'm just
kidding. Yeah, I believe one of the players.
He had a medical issue. It wasn't a flu. So I was told ahead of time that he wasn't going to be there, and they asked me to help with the roster if anything to do with the lineup card, because like me, they don't have a full-time assistant coach. So they have players that do it. So yeah, my understanding he's okay. He's had some yeah, so he's good to go, and I'm sure he's back in the lineup now, or he's back on the bench now.
The River Dragons then got to go back home to Columbus, which I'm sure was a sight for sore eyes for them. They had 2 dominant wins against Mississippi. Obviously, the Seawolves have had their own issues this year, but nevertheless, are you expecting a different-looking Columbus team from last Wednesday?
Well, whether they'll be flat or not, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I'm just looking at make sure, like, we had the weekend off. And when you do that, you just can't take things for granted. We've been rolling pretty good, and we got to make sure we have a good practice today, good practice tomorrow, make sure that, our tempo that is there. We're, guys appreciate the break, but now it's time to get back to work. We just got to make sure we're skating.
Speaking of Columbus, you've picked up one of their old netminders, and someone I know River Dragon fans really liked. William Lavaliere joins the Rock Lobsters. What made the goaltender position one that you wanted to strengthen, and how do you think Willie does that?
Well, he brings us the most experience, and we've got some young goalies, and we had Best here, and then Dominic, and the only issue with that is when you're looking, we're playing for all the marbles, and if the situation comes up where you don't have to take maybe as much of a chance on a, especially a key position like goaltending. And when Willie became available, to me, it was like, okay, you got to do this. And whether the young goalies could be just as good or not, to me, maybe that's something that then you're dealing with, the advantage of having a younger team and all that. But it's a key position, and you lose goalies in this league either to injury, and sometimes you lose them to the ECHL or whatever. So we lost a goalie to Peoria. So it was something that I didn't want to take for granted. And when I found out that he was going to be available, I just had to sign him.
In other news, Justin Portillo loaned to the Cincinnati Cyclones for his second ever foray into the ECHL. Big opportunity for Ports back in the coast in his home state. I was wondering, Ports had that fight against Shaheen a week and a half ago that went semi-viral in the hockey community. For a player Ports' profile, do you know if that played any part in his move up?
I would think so. I mean, they're bringing him in for toughness. They had an issue on the weekend, and coach didn't like the way the team responded, and wanted to get somebody that that he could count on to play a certain style. So, but when you have good fights, it gets around, and sometimes that's how people find out about you. And I remember one year, I had talked to Glenn Sather in the summertime, and I had an offer from the Flyers and an offer from Edmonton. And Edmonton told me, it says, we never heard about you until today. And, if you can fight, you can make, we have a spot here. And so sometimes people find out through certain, word of mouth, or now it's all video, and then opportunity arises.
After Columbus, your attention turns to the Dashers Hockey Club. As we speak, their losing streak stands at 30 games, and it is the longest in pro hockey history. We've played them twice in Danville this season. What are your thoughts on that whole situation over there?
Well, the reality, I mean, they weren't given much of an opportunity to have success. They have a small staff. They're understaffed. And to be able to, it isn't like it's a market that's had a lot of success. It's not in a warm climate. So it doesn't really have a lot of things that, like you look at Binghamton, they used to have an American League, team there. They got a fabulous locker room. They got a weight room. It's in a hockey area, in a hockey town, in same port. So everybody has their little bit of advantages, and I'm not sure they have a lot there. So, you need to get somebody in there that has, recruiting, background, and because it's a harder sell. I coached in Elmira, New York, in the ECHL, and people that have never had to recruit to those type of areas, they don't really know what it's like. They have no idea what it's like. And I saw a coach go from Florida, where everybody calls you, and then he was in Iowa and they were in last place, and he wasn't used to having recruiting and the work that you go into it. So I don't think that organization has been given much of a chance, to have success. And they're probably happy that we're coming back because we're the only team that they beat. But, I think the next night we beat them 10-2. We had like 60 shots on goal the night that I've never seen a goalie stand on his head and get more help from posts. And we hit him in the forehead a couple of times. So we're going to go in there to get 9 points. So that game that we had before is not happening again.
And Coach, I hate to finish it off with a cheesy question. I'm sure you'll bust my chops about it later. But coming up is Valentine's Day. And someone that we haven't had a chance to talk about is the person that you've spent the most of your years celebrating Valentine's Day with, your wife, Michelle. And she's been a big part of the organization thus far, helping out on the merchandise side. And I was curious what the beginning of this journey has been like, taking it with your wife, and just how great it's been to have her on this journey with you thus far.
Well, it was tough for a while because we were working on the team store. It was at our apartment. And, it was okay. I said, I had a joke because when it was at our house, we had the team store at our house, but we got a big house. When we were at the apartment, we're living in the team store. So that part of it was getting a little bit dicey. And then I was a free employee for it. And I'm like, I'm working overtime here all the time. And so we enjoy working together. And I'm she'll ask me about hats and, which hat I like. And I'm like, it's like that puzzle that you have to find a little bit of difference between. And so sometimes I get a little bit, I spend more time on that store than maybe I shouldn't say that, is not as much as I used to. But what really gets her is when I'm not around the players. And then, because I've always been kind of somebody that likes to tease people. And my mom used to say, you can't tease a teaser, because I always tell people I can dish it out, but I don't take it very well. But she likes it when I'm coaches and the players are around, because she thinks that I lay off of her a little bit and just tease the players. So that's my inside story on that.
Well, thanks for entertaining me with that question, Coach. I appreciate you taking the time today. The River Dragons and then the Dashers coming up for the Rock Lobsters. I'll see you next time, Coach.